welcome to another episode of The Glittering Bell Jar. I'm Valerie.
Hi, and I'm Bree.
Hi, Bree.
Welcome back to our show. It is
Yeah.
episode number 6. I am so excited to be here.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks for remembering the episode number. I don't think we've been doing that up to this point, but we are catching our stride. I feel like we're really getting into it finally.
Yeah, I feel like that too. And every week I get more and more excited to dive into the chapters. I feel like it's just something new, obviously, every single week, but I'm just like, what am I going to discover this week?
Yeah. I will say, though, that I was not excited to dive into our second chapter today, but when we get there, you'll all be able to tell why, because it's a very intense chapter. Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. So
Yeah.
how are you? How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm feeling a little off today. A little blah, but I'm happy to be here, so I'm trying to, bring that energy, the good energy forward. How about you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, feeling the same. It is the middle of winter when we're recording this, so probably people listening soon to when the episode is published are feeling the same way. And hopefully, we bring a little magic and light into your day through your ears. We really, really
Aw.
appreciate people listening. It's been awesome so far to get responses and reviews and all of that from people. That's been the best part by far.
Yeah, no, it absolutely has. Speaking of that, we actually did have someone. We had someone who had some feedback.
Yeah,
It
I was
is.
wrong. This is the short version. I was incorrect in what I said. However, I stand by my assertion that what I said would be very, very beautiful if it had been true. Anyway, you'll explain and then I'll talk more about it.
It still was beautiful. Okay, yes. So on Instagram, creating everyday magic. Basically, she called out. So she, I'm assuming, yes, or I'll say they. They have been reading to their kids, which I think is so cool. They were finishing up Goblet of Fire, and they said, "I swore Lily did talk to Harry in the cemetery during Priori Incantatum. Is that right? Does this not count because it was just the shadow of herself?" So what she's talking about is Valerie mentioned that past episodes was that whenever Harry's mom shows up, whenever he uses the resurrection stone, the first thing she says is, "I'm proud of you." And so we believed that to be the first time that she had spoke to him. But turns out in the cemetery in Goblet of Fire, Harry's mother actually did speak to him.
Yep, she did. I pulled out my book and I double checked and I was incorrect. She tells him, she basically does a really nice bit of exposition and just tells him what's going to happen. That
Yep.
they're here with him and they're going to try and protect him to give him time to get away. And that's pretty much it. So, yes, Harry's mom, Lily, does speak to Harry in Goblet of Fire and then again in Deathly Hallows in the forest. And I would say that our listeners absolutely does not need to doubt themselves. She is a shade of herself both times, so we're not going to say that one doesn't count. Absolutely,
Right.
you are right. Does count. So I will accept that I have been corrected. I will double check my work in the future. I do have actually a note in one of the other books today, so we will double check that and make sure I'm right about that. Yeah, but we really appreciate that. Like, I'm happy to be wrong because
Yeah.
I'm learning, right? So I would have gone on thinking that it was like this beautiful moment. And it is a beautiful moment, but like now I know there is another beautiful moment too. And it means you're all listening, which right now as a little baby podcast is so
Yeah.
meaningful. Like that's what we're here for. So our love of Harry
Yes.
Potter and to hear from you when I say something that's wrong. That's what we show up for every single week.
It literally made my day. I was like, Valerie.
You're wrong about something. Someone told us.
But I was excited.
Yeah, no.
But in your defense, when I read it, I was like, oh, because I was like, is that her talking or is that James? Is that Harry's dad? Because it was a little confusing because it does say he couldn't really hear her. And then it started with someone talking. So I just thought it was James as well. So
yeah, it's definitely Lily, but it also was, I can see how I made that mistake in the past. Won't happen again, people. I'll do my best. Yes. So thank you again. If you hear anything in this episode that one of us says incorrectly, one of us states the wrong fact, whatever, feel free to reach out. Reach out to us on social media. We are Bell Jar Pod on the major platforms, and you can always mention it in your review with the 5 stars on Apple because we really love those 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, 100%. We have 15 of those, and every day I look and I'm like, did we get a new one? So if you write us or give us a review, even if it's a little bit of feedback, like Creating Everyday Magic did, it will make our day. So whatever you say, it'll just make us feel good.
I say that. I hear about podcasters who get 1-star reviews and it does not make their day, but I'm going to take it. I'm going to say that's a star. Like it's still a star better than 0 stars. Like you could have given us 0. You could have not given us any stars. So give me those stars, however many you
Yeah.
want to get.
I mean,
Okay,
preferably
so
you give us 5 and then say bad things, but anyways.
yeah. Okay, so let's dive
digress.
into this week's episode. As a reminder,
Yeah.
if this is your first time listening, we are reading Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows backwards. So we start at the end of a chapter, we read the last sentence, and then we go back and read the chapter, and then we step back chapter. So we are moving our way toward the middle of Deathly Hallows. This week we are covering 2 chapters, which is chapter 24 and 23. Right off the bat, Bree's going to give us a recap of the chapter, and then I will read the final sentence, and then we will discuss.
So chapter 24. The Wandmaker. So we begin this chapter with the burial of Dobby. Very sad. Harry then proceeds to talk to both Grindelwald and Griphook as he watches, or tries not to watch, Voldemort decide to steal the Elder Wand from the tomb of Albus Dumbledore. Meanwhile, Harry is slowly figuring out the mysteries of the wand and trying to understand the mind of Dumbledore and why he told him about the Horcruxes and not the Elder Wand.
Perfect recap. And the final sentence in this chapter is, the spider-like hand swooped and pulled the wand from Dumbledore's grasp, and as he took it, a shower of sparks flew from its tip, sparkling over the corpse of its last owner, ready to serve a new master at last. And actually, let's just start with that sentence, because we're jumping around in time. It's the glittering bell jar. I think this sentence is a little misleading, because Voldemort is not the master of the Elder Wand. And we know that because we read the end of the book first. There's a couple things in here where I think she maybe tips it one way or the other to keep the reader curious about what's going on or uncertain of what the final outcome will be. But this to me reads like Voldemort's in charge of this wand and he's actually not. We know that. I mean, it works for him. He's not maybe the new master, but he is a new master. I don't know if we can get that granular in the way the sentence is written. What do you think?
So because Harry is in Voldemort's mind, I think that she was able to get away with it because that is almost what Voldemort is thinking, is that the wand is ready to serve a new master. And so that's how I think she kind of tiptoed around that, is Voldemort is thinking that instead of it being stated in the book as an outside perspective.
It's like his opinion. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Anyway, I noticed that when I read it and I was like, I don't know if that wand really thinks you're its master. In fact, I know it doesn't.
Yeah. And we don't have to get it right this second, but I did a ton of research on the Elder Wand, so I am actually super excited to talk about the wand today.
Well, we're talking about it. Let's just dive right in.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Okay. So I find the Deathly Hallows in themselves pretty interesting, but the Elder Wand obviously is what Voldemort was most enamored by. So I found it interesting, especially for this chapter. It's all about the Elder Wand versus the Horcruxes. So the Elder Wand, we all know the story of the Deathly Hallows. I'm assuming since you're reading it backwards with us, you already know all about it. The 3 brothers, the eldest wanted the wand. So the eldest brother actually copied a bunch of stuff from Wiki fandom, right? Isn't that what it's called? So the oldest brother, who was a combative man, asked for a wand more powerful than any in existence, a wand that must always win duels for its owner, a wand worthy of a wizard who had conquered death. So that is the tale, right? The tale is that the wands came from death and that the invisibility cloak and the resurrection stone. Now, Elvis thought it was really unlikely that the Elder Wand was actually made by death. Assumed it was just created by the eldest brother, and Anticock. I can't say his name. But that in itself I found interesting because as a reader, I think, and the fact that we're reading magic, I kind of liked to believe that it really was Death who created those for them. I guess I was like, no, definitely Death did it, right? Which is funny because that's what Voldemort assumed, is that he believed all the rumors. He believed that first off, it was made by Death and that the wand really would always win duels because he thought it would make him invincible. Because Grindelwald actually says, the Dark Lord no longer seeks the Elder Wand only for your destruction, Mr. Potter. He is determined to possess it because he believes it will make him truly invulnerable. But it's not actually true. So Voldemort thought, first off, the wand is not going to make you invulnerable. It's a very powerful wand made of thestral, so it has very powerful magic. And if you are a powerful wizard, you can use the wand, but you have to know how to master it because it is a strong wand. But the fact that he thought that you had to kill the owner to have the wand, it was the mistake he made, was believing that rumor. And of course, Voldemort would assume, like, okay, fine, I have to kill the master for it to, for me to be the new master, which is so interesting to me. We keep seeing Voldemort's flaws, and that is one of them. He chose to believe the rumors as fact. He didn't even think, what if that isn't true?
Well, and he missed a big one because Grindelwald is still alive.
Right. That's what I don't understand. That's
Grindelwald
what makes
is still
no
alive,
sense.
and Dumbledore ends up with the Elder Wand.
Yes.
So that means you don't have to kill the former master to get the Elder Wand to give you its allegiance. Like, it literally,
100%.
and we're definitely crossing between the two chapters here, but I marked that because I was like, you didn't even assume now that because Grindelwald is laying in a prison, you don't have to kill someone to take the wand. You assume still you're going to have to kill Snape. What?
Yeah. Right. And so this is what Dumbledore said about it. I was fit only to possess the meanest of them, the least extraordinary. I was fit to own the Elder Wand and not to boast of it and not to kill with it. I was permitted to tame and to use it because I took it, not for gain, but to save others from it. So I almost wonder, even if Harry hadn't have been the rightful owner, if the wand still would have been loyal to Voldemort.
Or not loyal to him.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Because Harry could have made it switch allegiances just by using it to protect from harm. Like,
Right.
That's what he was doing. He was trying to protect other people from harm, which is what Dumbledore claims that he did to gain the allegiance of the wand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one, it's funny. Our last episode 5, we called it Lore and Data, which is a very nerdy Star Trek reference. This one has even more of the wand lore that we talked about last episode, which makes me think we maybe should have tried to fit them into one episode, but it's kind of hard to break up the book. This one sort of fits together with Malfoy Manor, which is what the other chapter we're going to cover today. But there's so much wand lore, and I find it fascinating. Like, does the Department of Mysteries have one of those rooms? Because that's the room I want to go explore.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for diving into that, because the Elder Wand is, I will say, it's kind of interesting when you were telling the story. I never wondered whether Death was responsible for making them or not. Like, it's kind of funny when I read, I don't necessarily question the truth or the veracity of claims within a book unless I'm asked to by the narrator, by the writer. So I was just like, it doesn't really matter. Actually, these objects obviously exist. They obviously have the powers that they were given, whether they were made by man or made by wizard or made by Death. It kind of irrelevant to me in terms of how the story moves forward. And the Elder Wand is also not the one I'm the most interested in. I am, I think, more like Harry, and in that the Resurrection Stone is the one that I've sort of been following, because I find it fascinating that it ended up being a Horcrux and a Hallow. So I'm really glad you dove into that, because it is really interesting and important, especially here when we're talking about the allegiance of the Elder Wand and how critical that is to the final battle.
Well, and not to mention the fact that, so there's actually a Reddit. I love having Harry Potter Reddit. And somebody asked why Dumbledore had Snape kill him. And they said, was it because that he wanted him to have the Elder Wand? And it was like, no. He thought because Snape was killing Dumbledore as a kindness, the wand's power should have died with Dumbledore. But instead, obviously, it didn't go according to plan. But he was able to not only... supposedly he would be killing the magic of the Elder Wand, and Malfoy's soul would be saved. Which was another thing that's interesting, is that kind of didn't go to plan, but without that going, because it didn't go to plan, that actually worked in Harry's favor, in the world's favor. So.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know that I always assumed that he had Snape kill him so that, one, he had to die anyway. We already knew that, because he had damaged his hand with the curse. And two, Snape had already done lots of bad things, so his soul was on his own balance sheet. And that if anyone was going to be the master of the wand, he actually wanted it to be Snape, because he knew that deep in his heart, if the wand was Snape's, Snape would not use it against Harry.
No, and I could probably go back in the chapter and find it, but Snape actually gets mad at Dumbledore, because he says, but what of my soul? And he said, well, that is up to you. But if you realize that you're doing me a kindness and that I was going to die anyways, your soul's going to be fine. And because he's not actually killing him in a duel, the wand supposedly wouldn't be his master. The wand would just die with Dumbledore. Yeah, I'll have to find the actual, if anybody calls me out on it, I will find the actual text on it. But I did some research because.
Interesting. So did I know what happens in the movie? Did Harry break the wand in half, the Elder Wand in half in the book? I can't remember. I will say having him break it in half in the movie is now much more interesting to me because I didn't quite understand why he did that because I don't think it's in the book.
He does something
Harry
with
says
it.
in the book, Harry says, if I die a natural death, the wand's power will die with me. So Harry keeps it. Harry actually keeps it.
Yeah, that's right.
And in the movie, he breaks it in half. And it's literally like, that's the only thing that you should do with that wand if you don't want anyone to have it. Because even if you die a natural death, we cannot be sure that wand's power will end with you. Because Voldemort
I think we can.
Takes it from.
Oh, okay. But it doesn't, but it won't work magically. It won't be powerful because Voldemort says this wand works just like my other wand. And Snape's trying to talk him out of killing him. And he's like, you've done extraordinary magic. And he said, yes, I've done extraordinary magic, but no different than the wand, my original wand. So it was doing the same type of magic.
The Elder Wand works. We don't know if the Elder Wand works at all because the actual master of the Elder Wand is Draco Malfoy, and he never holds it. Until Harry takes possession of the Elder Wand, we don't actually know if the Elder Wand's magic has been preserved through the death of Albus Dumbledore.
But it has because Harry is its master, and the curse rebounded onto Voldemort. And had Harry not been his master, it wouldn't have rebounded.
But no, because their spells hit in midair. We may have to trim this section. We're definitely in a rabbit hole here.
I love it, though. I'm here for it.
Yeah, so what happens in the final battle, and you can't see my fingers unless you want to watch it on YouTube, is Harry casts Expelliarmus and Dumbledore casts Avada Kedavra, and they hit, and they bounce back. And it's his own killing curse that rebounds, but it's the killing curse cast by the Elder Wand. And then somehow, I don't quite know how, the Expelliarmus also hits Voldemort because the Elder Wand goes flying through the air and lands in Harry catches it.
That's because it was loyal to Harry. And that's literally why he was baiting Voldemort, saying, are you sure it's loyal to you? Because if it's not loyal to you, basically it's going to rebound. And Voldemort took the chance and it rebounded because it wouldn't kill its own master.
Well, I still think the final sentence in this chapter is misleading then, because it seems to be that Voldemort believes that he's the master and the wand acts like he's the master.
I mean, it got some sparks out of it. I don't know that means he thought it was the master.
That's what Harry's wand did when he repaired it at the end of the book. This is okay. We're deep in the world of wand lore. Okay. I'm not sure I agree with Reddit and the wiki.
Oh, it was me. It wasn't Reddit.
No, but you said on Reddit that they said that's why he had Snape kill him.
No, that's what I'm saying. They had asked, and I did research, and I looked and found text that solidified my theory.
That's why Dumbledore asks Snape to kill him.
Yeah, no, 100%. That is why he asked him to kill him.
I'll have to think about this. It's interesting. Thank you for diving down this rabbit hole, because it's definitely, I've never really dove into the Elder Wand that much.
Yeah. All right. Well, if anyone has any thoughts on that, I would happily go down another rabbit hole next week.
Obviously, this is one that's of interest to us, and we're clearly not done with the Deathly Hallows, even though we're moving backward. I mean, we have a ways to go before we're done talking about them.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. Where do you want to start in this chapter? There is a lot that happens.
Let's see. Oh, the burial of Dobby. Not to keep talking, but I actually did find something interesting. The very first couple sentences is that. So it says, for an instant, Harry knelt again beside Dumbledore's body. So whenever he sees Dobby laying there dead, he's brought back to Dumbledore's funeral, which is interesting that she made that analogy. The only thing I could think of is later on, she says, then Harry remembers Dumbledore's funeral, feeling that Dobby deserves just as grand as one. He's mad that, Dobby doesn't get this grand funeral. So I don't know. Why do you think she made that comparison? Like, why was that bringing him back to Dumbledore?
Well, it's the only 2 funerals he's ever been to, which I don't know. I mean, every funeral I've ever been to reminds me of another funeral I've been to, which is why it gets hard to get older, because you've been to a lot of funerals by that point. And I think that in some ways, Harry, and I don't remember because we haven't read this recently, but Harry thinks that Dumbledore's kind of like pomp and circumstance funeral was like not what he actually would have wanted. And in sort of like, I think Harry sort of looks at funerals and sort of wonders whether it's what the person actually wanted or deserved. And so in this case, he's just thinking like Dobby deserves so much more. He's done so much despite being just a house elf. And especially for him personally, he wonders, you know, why do some people get the Minister of Magic speaking and the little guy in the funny hat and all this, and then some people get remembered by a few people in a dirt grave.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, didn't Cedric Diggory have a funeral though? But I guess
they had a memorial. They just had a memorial.
Fair enough. Okay.
I will say this one was interesting. I marked a big, huge section in this book in the beginning of this chapter when Harry is thinking about his grief for Dobby and how it works as an insulator against Voldemort. And we were talking last week about Harry's ability to delve into Voldemort's mind without pain. And that's exactly what's happening in these two chapters we're covering today, is that he's getting these flashes of Voldemort. And finally, he does gain the ability to control it through his grief for Dobby, which is exactly how he pushed out Voldemort when he was remembering Sirius's death. So there was a big, big section that I marked that it was like, he says his scar burned, but he was the master of the pain. Like he finally gains the ability to control his pain and his scar and Voldemort's thoughts intruding on his own without any of that pain because of Dobby dying, which is sort of important because going forward, he has to be able to control it to keep moving the story, moving himself, Harry or Hermione and Ron forward.
Yeah. Well, and it does mention, he said using grief as a tool. He said, or Dumbledore would say it was love, which I thought,
which is true.
Yeah. A painful love.
Yeah, you don't feel grief. You don't feel grief for people you don't love.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
I do want to call out Luna's moment here at the funeral of Dobby, that I thought it was one of the most like clear-minded and articulate things that she said that was like not wildly inappropriate. She just thanks him for saving them and says she'll never forget it and wishes him his spirit rest, which I thought was a very beautiful moment for a character who is so kind of off the wall. She could have said something wildly inappropriate and she didn't, and that was really nice.
Yeah, I don't feel like she would. I don't see her that way. Like, I don't know. Like, it's not like she would be like, well, maybe. I guess she could be like I could see his aura or something. I don't know. But, yeah, no, I liked that. And I felt it was almost like she was reading Harry's thoughts, which I feel like she almost often does, where she comes to his rescue. He literally is sitting there wishing that that Dobby had a grand funeral. And then she's like, maybe I should say something. And like, she literally read his thoughts that he deserved, to at least be memorialized by someone. So I liked that as well.
And here's an important question I was thinking about this week. What do you think is Luna's favorite class at Hogwarts? Just as a side tangent, real quick.
Oh, okay. That is a good question. I honestly don't see her as like someone that would like Trelawney's class.
I don't either. I'm always like, it's got to be divination. And then I'm like, no, it's actually not. And so if it's not that, what is it?
I don't know. I mean, not herbology. That's Neville's.
Charms, maybe?
Yeah, maybe charms. Or, you know what? She really liked doing spells, though, because that's what her mom liked doing. Like actual, you know what I mean? Potions and spells. I mean, that's how her mom died, but they still like doing it. Like she even said, like, I still...
Yeah. Yeah, I was just curious. I was just thinking about Luna this week.
Love that.
Thinking about Luna a lot more than usual. Another thing I do love jumping back into this chapter is this chapter and the one before, we get a ton of references to the other books. So we get Help Will Always Be Given at Hogwarts for Those Who Ask for It, which is Chamber of Secrets. We get the first visit to Gringotts when he's talking to Griphook in the bedroom. So there's a few more in the Malfoy Manor chapter. I just really liked how I feel like that's the signal to me that we're in the third act. Like the arrival at Shell Cottage to me is the beginning of the third act, because you start to wrap it all up, which means pulling all these threads that have come from different stories and making sense of them. And Malfoy Manor is almost the end of the second act. So we're kind of transitioning between the two, which is funny because that's exactly how the movies break down. Is it's Shell Cottage is the break point between the two Deathly Hallows films. So they did a nice job actually of recognizing what I'm discovering by reading it this way, which is that this is the point where we've entered the finale of it all, because everything starts to reference each other.
Yeah, I like that. How about all the talk of the sea and the ocean? Like, she did such a wonderful job literally making us feel like we were there. Like, you would never for a moment during this chapter and the last chapter, I just felt like I was at the ocean. I felt like I was at Shell Cottage. A couple of the lines: the sea was rushing against a rock somewhere nearby. Harry listened to it while the others talked. His rage was dreadful, and yet Harry's grief for Dobby seemed to diminish it, so that it became a distant storm that reached Harry from across a vast, silent ocean. And there are a couple more that I found, and it was just beautiful.
Yeah, there's one point where she describes it mournfully, which I thought was a very appropriate word given the context that this chapter opens in. Yeah, this is one where you can almost hear the waves in the background of your mind, and she does a nice job of bringing it back regularly, exactly as waves fall, so that you remember all of the sensory experience of being at this place.
Yeah, 100%. The only other thing I found was the word blood trader. I don't know that I had really paid attention to that word before. So, you have mudblood, you have half-blood, you have pure blood, and you have a blood trader. So that's a pure blood or half-blood, basically standing up for mudbloods or muggles.
Who is not living up to the quality of their blood. Yeah, it's an interesting term. Another thing that I caught, as just a very quick side reference, is there's the discussion between Harry and Ollivander. Harry says that Voldemort trusted Bellatrix and her husband. So a couple episodes ago, I was like, where the heck is Bellatrix's husband? Well, he's mentioned here. He doesn't get his name. I don't know. I still don't know what happened to him. Maybe we'll discover it as I'm reading backwards because I'm paying attention to it. But I'm like, nope, she still has a husband. I'm not sure what she's doing with Voldemort, but she's got a husband officially.
Something I want to watch for, again, Reddit's got me thinking about things, and it'll be much further, but I just want to put it on the books for now, so it'll be fun. There's a theory that Narcissa and Snape had an affair.
Interesting.
Yeah. So once we get there.
So when we get to the unbreakable vow at the beginning of Half-Blood
that's
Prince,
exactly.
We got to watch that chapter.
Yep, that's what it is. That's where it is. So
interesting.
Yeah. So we'll have to look in this book. I said it just because I want to, if there's any hints throughout this book, I want to be watching for it. But yeah, it's a theory. Although I can't really picture Snape with anybody, but nevertheless.
Bellatrix is like the only one I can imagine. Okay. Do you have anything else in this chapter?
No.
Okay, cool. So let's go back in time. We're going to step back to chapter 23.
Okay. All right. So the big three are caught by Greyback and other scavengers. After discovering his identity, they take him to Malfoy Manor to be rewarded by Voldemort, with gold, of course. There, Bellatrix tortures Hermione, while Ron and Harry are sent to the dungeon where they find Luna, Dean, and Ollivander. Bellatrix summons the Dark Lord, but before he gets there, sweet Dobby comes to the rescue and operates to Shell Cottage.
Very succinctly said. And the final sentence of this chapter is, and then with a little shudder, the elf became quite still, and his eyes were nothing more than great glassy orbs, sprinkled with light from stars they could not see. And that is why I was not looking forward to reading this chapter, because I remember being in the audience in the movie, this scene, and someone sobbing aloud, and it was like ripped from their heart, the pain of watching Dobby die, and I will never forget that.
Yeah,
I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, we just shoved that in a little box, put it inside. Yeah,
it's interesting. I will say
brutal.
It's very interesting how she often kills characters right at the end of a chapter.
Yeah. Okay.
Now that I'm thinking about it, it's often right at the end of a chapter, which does allow the reader to compartmentalize it. That's that chapter, and now we're starting with the ramifications of that death.
Yeah.
If I don't know if authors do this on purpose, or if there's a reason psychologically to do it, but it seems like the death and then the ramifications of the death, keeping them separate, make it easier for a reader to move through them. I don't know. That's just a hypothesis.
I like it. It's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see. There are a few more deaths that we have to
Ugh.
process through as we work through the book. So
Yeah.
I will keep an eye on that as well.
So what did
So
you
what
pick
jumped
up on
out at
this
you from
chapter?
this? Oh, okay. Give me a second. You ask me that question if you want.
So what did you get from this chapter?
Yeah. So again, one thing I do want to point out is that I caught a lot of references to the other books.
Okay.
I mean, we get Stan Shunpike turns up, so we get some name dropping.
Mm-hmm.
We get a reference to the Chamber of Secrets through the Slytherin Common Room, which, by the way, is the reference that I want to make back into the previous book. So
Okay.
just after they've been captured, they
Yes.
are getting questioned, and they ask Harry what house he was in, and he's pretending to be Vernon Dudley. And he says, I was in Slytherin. And they're like, funny how that's what they always think we want to hear. And he's like, I actually know where it is. It is in the dungeons. You enter through a wall. It's full of skulls and it's under the lake. So the light's all green. And I was like, skulls? I don't remember skulls in my common room. So I went back and there are no skulls in the common room in Chamber of Secrets. It is a long, low underground room with rough stone walls and ceiling from which round green lamps hung on chains. So I don't know where the lake bit comes from. I don't know where the skull bits come from. That may be from the movies, because in the movies, it does have windows that look out under the lake. Yeah. But there are no skulls in this original description as far as I could tell. Now, again, dear listener, if you think I'm wrong, please correct me. Send us screenshots of your copy. Yes, but please. I think, again, this is an opportunity where she wrote this description based more from the movies than from her own original writing, which is fine. It's all one universe. Totally cool. But just like with Diagon Alley and how the entrance changed, I think this is the same thing. So yeah, anyway, that's kind of what jumped out at me in this. Yeah. One of the big things is like these references to the other books.
Nice. Yeah, you know, something funny I found is they can't figure out who Vernon Dudley is because, of course, Hermione has put a jinx on his face so that they can't tell. His face is like puffy and boils and all sorts of stuff. And they're like, I don't know. And they see the scar and they're like, maybe it's all stretch. But the glasses, they put the glasses on him. They're like, oh yeah, it's Harry Potter. Like, what is he,
and
Clark Kent?
Step back. Like, oh my God. That's not Clark Kent. Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought that kind of funny.
Have they never heard of contact lenses, people? Yeah. And again, this references what we talked about last chapter, where it's like, why weren't they just in disguise regularly? You know, like Hermione can do magic, which transforms the way they look. Harry should always be in disguise. He is undesirable number one.
Right. Yeah. 100%. We won't go back down that rabbit hole, but it's a hole.
A missed magical opportunity. Another missed magical opportunity here at Malfoy Manor is when they arrive and he's all puffy and swollen and nobody thinks to use Finite, which would remove the spell and then show them Harry's normal face. That's like, you can end a spell by just casting certain like counter spells or saying Finite to end the spell. So I'm like, well, these people all have wands. Why aren't they using the magic? But
maybe they weren't very good at Hogwarts, you know? They weren't very good students.
Well, Lucius Malfoy was a prefect, but he doesn't have a wand. So I think this is just where I can get really nitty gritty because we're doing it with such a fine tooth comb. And I don't want to be like negative Nancy on all the little plot holes that I'm finding.
I don't know. I kind of like it. I like to hear the plot holes.
Oh, I have one more.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of Half-Blood Prince, Draco's like, oh, I can't believe I have to go back to school for one more year. I'm not going next year. And everyone's like, oh, what? He goes back to school in this book because he's home on Easter holidays. So he does all 7 years, which probably means that Harry had a great 7th year when he was there. Ginny was also a 7th year. They all go back and finish their degrees. And there's no Draco Malfoy to deal with anymore.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. I didn't even think about them going back for their 7th year.
I don't think you get to be head of the Auror office, which is what I'm assuming Harry does, which I think is in Cursed Child. I don't think you could do that without your education completed.
Can you imagine going back to Hogwarts? I mean, you're going to get me down a big rabbit hole. Like, you have just won the war and defeated the Dark Lord. You know, but all 3 of them and all, you know, Neville and Luna. Like, now you have to go back to school and, like, listen to, like, I don't know.
Professor Binns.
Yeah. Exactly. Either you would love it because you're like, oh, I get to be normal for a year. Or you would just be like, this is stupid. Like, I defeated the Dark Lord.
Another thing I caught is when Bellatrix realizes that they may have been in her vault. She says, the situation is graver than you can possibly imagine. We have a very serious problem. And I kind of wondered, we sort of get the sense of that from the discussions that Harry has had and our own discussions about how Voldemort doesn't trust anyone. But whatever he told Bellatrix was in that vault has enough that she is terrified of Voldemort. So I'm a
Okay.
little bit curious what he could have told her that wasn't, this is a piece of my soul, protect it with your life and don't tell me if anything happens to it, which is what she's trying to do.
Yeah.
What could he have said that would have scared her that much? Because it wasn't like with the diary where he just gave it to Lucius and Lucius didn't even realize it was anything other than a diary.
Right. But he told him to protect it. I think just the fact that he told her to protect it and put it in her vault, he probably just said, this is super important. And like, if the guy's a mass murderer and you lose his one thing that he said super important, like, I don't know.
True. That is true. That is true. I was just like, maybe she does know. Maybe she knows more than she's putting on about how important this is. But
Yeah, maybe.
it's hard to know. I mean, we're under the impression that Voldemort trusts no one, and he kind of implies that he should never have trusted anyone with any of them. So it might just be
Right.
that he's like, lose this and you're in big trouble, young lady. And she was like,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
Yeah. Speaking of Bellatrix, it says page 460 in my book, basically, Anne knew that she was about to touch it, to summon her beloved master. Another reference to her, beloved master.
Yeah.
I think that could
Yeah,
go
you
either
got
way.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Is
really
it-
good at catching those words that she's using to describe their relationship.
Yeah, because it's weird.
Yeah,
Freaking
it
me
is
out,
weird.
man.
I'd never really picked up on any of that dynamic before, but yeah, it's definitely obvious that she has a very strong set of emotions for Voldemort,
Mm-hmm.
including
So,
fear, as we were just discussing.
obviously, I'll deathly fear. What about Narcissa? 2 lines. She says, "Don't you dare speak to Draco that way." And then, as Narcissa dragged Draco out of the way from further harm, her only goal this whole time is just protect Draco. Literally, she
Hmm.
doesn't care about the rest of them. She barely says anything.
Hmm. And I thought it was interesting that she's the first one to see Harry when they bring him into the room, and she again checks him to see if
Mm-hmm.
he's real, just
Yeah.
like she does in the forest. She's sent to check him, and
Yep.
presumably, I mean, then again, I don't know. Voldemort doesn't know any of what's happening in this chapter because he's off in Nuremberg. But
Right.
yeah, I thought there was some symmetry there as well. And she's a very consistent character too, in that it's not even Lucius, it's Draco. She is there to
Yep.
be the mother for Draco and to protect him where she can.
Yeah, which makes you wonder if she kind of like regrets being with Lucius, because she's not all love. I get it. They're all horrible people, but in a capsule, like she is all love for Draco, like
Mhm.
all she seems to do of what we get of her is, well, Draco and possibly Snape now. Maybe she loves Snape too. Yeah, and Draco, I love seeing his duality where he constantly tries to fight the dark side inside of him, or maybe tries to fight the light. I don't know, but he's like, I don't know, it could be Harry. And they're like, well, is this Hermione? They don't have disguises on, or I'm assuming they don't say anything about them having disguises. Is that Hermione? Is that Ron Weasley? But
Maybe. I think
yeah.
Draco is that terrified of Voldemort. Like
Mm,
whatever he can do to prevent Voldemort from being summoned into his
that's
home,
fair.
his safe place. That's how I was thinking about that too when I read
Hmm.
this. And I was like, if it were me and the way that I remember the books having when I read them forward, I would do anything to not have that man come back. I don't want him to come back if I have to lie or be non-committal or whatever.
Actually, I like that. That does
I
make a lot of sense.
Yeah, he's more motivated by fear than by any sense of altruism or evil. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I have a good one for you.
Okay.
In the books that we're reading, page 466,
Mm-hmm.
Dumbledore's eye was gazing at him out of the mirror.
Hmm.
I love that sentence because I was like, she told us it was Dumbledore, but she
Yeah.
didn't say which one. And that is a critical way to
Oh.
phrase that sentence. It's true. That sentence is 100% true. It is Dumbledore's eye. It is not Albus Dumbledore. We just don't know that yet.
Wow.
Yep. One
Wow.
little
Okay.
sentence. And I was like, very cleverly written. That sentence gets past me. The one about mastery and the Elder Wand, I don't know about that one, but this one, perfect sentence.
Okay. Yeah. I love that.
Let's see.
Else? Oh, can we just talk for a second? It doesn't really have a throwback. Hermione's whole storyline through this chapter, it is dark. It is dark for a kid's. I mean, I know it's at this point, it's not so much a kid's book, right? But children do read this book and they may not get everything that she's saying. But Greyback wanted Hermione for
eat
dark
her.
reasons.
To eat her. To drink her blood. He attacks and eats people with his teeth.
I guess I feel like it was a little bit darker. I think, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's one of the things he would have done. But for me, there was other things hidden beneath the text. But that's what I
Maybe.
thought.
Yeah, I didn't read it that way, but either way.
Either way, it's really dark. Yeah.
No, thank you.
He wanted her. And the fact that they are torturing, the torture that they are inflicting on her, for one, showing how freaking strong she is, but for two, just showing how evil Bellatrix is, which we know, but she's using the Crucio curse on her. She is using her knife to cut her up. Like, she is the worst kind of torture that you could do to someone. And it's like, dang, Hermione is strong. She's not only smart and witty, she is strong.
This was actually the scene where in the films, where I was the most impressed by Emma Watson as an actress. Do you know this story of how she prepared for this scene? So in the films, if you've seen the films, which hopefully you have if you're listening to this podcast, it's not just a matter of like threatening her or whatever, doing spell work to torture her. Bellatrix carves mudblood into her arm. And to get the acting right for that part, Emma Watson watched films of people being tortured. And that's why that scene, it gives me goosebumps even thinking about it, because she does such a good performance of the agony of torture that it's 100% believable. You don't doubt it. And it's from the commitment to her character to understand what she had actually gone through, which is the highest accolade, is like to become your character. And she did the work to become Hermione in this particular scene, which was very challenging. I heard, when I remember hearing the story, they said, crew members on set were genuinely afraid, would run over when they would start shooting, because she was screaming so believably that they were worried she was actually hurt. So anyway, huge props to Emma Watson for her performance in this scene. I look forward to seeing it whenever we do a movie recap.
They were like, Helena has lost it and she's actually torturing her. She's become Bellatrix.
Yeah. You never know with those teeth, you never know. That was one. I mean, I just think about it and I can hear her screams echoing, and like that kind of performance that it translates back into the book. When I read the book, is just a real testament to Emma Watson's abilities as an actress. Bravo.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Wow. That was a good fact. I liked that.
I do know lots of random stories like that from the filming process. I don't know why. I have no idea where I picked them all up.
Yeah, keep them coming. Do you pick anything else up from the chapter?
That's all I had in this one. Yeah, that's it. I've emptied out all my stickies. Every time I fill it with stickies, and then as we go through them, I pull them back out so I don't miss any of them that I want to talk about.
Good for you. I still keep them. That's a good idea. I should move them. I actually have one more thing.
Okay,
so
and we have to do our quiz question, remember?
Oh, yes.
Right, okay,
of course.
So what do you have?
So Wormtails, or Peter Pettigrew, his moment of love, where he falters for just a second because Harry says, "I saved your life." And I don't know why, but he had a moment of a little bit of love or something in there other than evil. And it saves their life. But it just shows Harry defeats Voldemort because of other people's love or help. And Voldemort loses because he has people's fear, not their love. And even if Peter didn't love him, there was a kindness that flickered for a second. Some kind of something.
He saw James and Lily just to make it real sad. I just grabbed my copy of Goblet of Fire.
Okay.
To see if I could find the scene where Harry and Dumbledore discuss the making of the silver hand, because that is something they do talk about where Dumbledore says something about it. And let me see.
Yeah.
Oh man, I might not be able to find it. We might have to check back in on it at the beginning of next week's episode, because it's going to take me a little while. I'm very unfamiliar. I'm very unfamiliar with the middle of the series right now, because it's been so long since I read them. Normally I know exactly where everything is, but I will say I ran out of things to read. Not that that's ever really true, but I was like, ooh, I want to start Harry Potter. And I was like, you have to wait. You have to wait.
I know.
It's going to be like 7 months before we get back to the beginning of the series, and then I can read it again. Then I probably want a break. Okay, so before we wrap everything up, let's do our Gilderoy Lockhart style quiz. As a reminder, if you're listening, every single week we drop a little bit of trivia about ourselves. And at the end of this season / at the end of the class. The person who remembers gets the most right answers will get a prize TBD. But it will be cool because Instagram has figured out that I'm a Harry Potter fan and I get served tons of cool licensed stuff. So we will get you something cool as a prize if you can remember the most right answer. So this week, the question that we are asking is about our Patronuses. So Brie, what is your Patronus?
So I do everything on the Wizarding World, so I did not decide what my Patronus is. I don't know which you did, but mine is the Lynx, which I thought was pretty cool. You know, I'm more of a dog person, but yeah, it's still, okay. I like Kingsley. Yeah, it's still pretty powerful, pretty cool Patronus. What about you?
Yeah, it's a badass cat. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. You got to have a cat. That's a good one to have. So mine actually does come from the Wizarding World also. Cool. I didn't agree with basically anything else I got, but I did really like the Patronus I was selected, which was a hummingbird. Ooh. And if you know me, I love hummingbirds. I think they're fascinating. I love pollinator species. And my husband and I, when we got married, we designed a family crest, and we both love hummingbirds so much that is one of the 2 animals that is on our family crest. So, and that was not because it's my Patronus. There's hummingbirds. They're just part of my essence and my being. So it would make perfect sense that I would have a teeny tiny little Patronus out there skewering Dementors with its little beak.
Well, and it's part of our logo. I mean, that's basically like a little hummingbird in there.
Oh, you're right. Oh my gosh. I didn't even think of that.
It's everywhere.
Yes. See, they're everywhere. They are everywhere. I don't have any on my desk, actually. I should probably get a little hummingbird something for my desk because I look at all this stuff all the time. But yep, they're all around. That's cool. my Patronus. So again, to recap, Bree's Patronus is a lynx and mine is a hummingbird. So take that in your little notebook or write it down somewhere. And we will release the quiz form at the end of the season.
Cool. All right.
So we're going to wrap it up.
Yep. This was fun. Thank you all for listening. If you have any feedback or you just want to talk about the episode, hit us up. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. It's at BellJarPod. BellJarPod. We do have an email, Valerie.
Yeah, so the email you can reach us at is podcast@followthebutterflies.com. And if you want even more Harry Potter in your life, that website, followthebutterflies.com, is full of other Harry Potter resources. I've got gift guides. I've got how to decorate your bathroom Harry Potter style. I was just working on a couple potions that you can make at home that are delicious. So if you want more Harry Potter, that is the place to get it. And as a reminder, leave us a 5-star review or leave us any review with some stars. You heard me at the beginning. I love stars, however many you want to give. I prefer 5 stars, of course, but we'll take as many stars as you feel we deserve. We work hard. We love being here. We love talking Harry Potter. We want to hear from you, whether that's a review or following us on social and contacting us there. And we will be back next week with another new episode.
Yeah. Excited for next week. See you next time.